Okay, then we will move on to new business. If folks are going to be leaving copies of the presentations, did you have copies of yours, Scott? Okay, copies of the presentation on the superintendent positions here for people to take if they're interested on their way out. Excuse me? Yeah, I'm not trying to get rid of anybody. I was just, you're welcome to stay throughout the rest of the meeting, but if you decide to leave, you can pick that up on when you leave. Yes?
Is that new or old business?
I'm sorry, I'm deaf.
New, is that the old business?
We are done with old business.
Right,
We finished old business public comment. Now we're moving on to new business.
Papers on the
What did
desk.
you put over there?
What are they?
Those are hard copies of the presentation that I gave on the superintendent position.
Thank you.
For anybody who would like a copy. And everybody is welcome to stay until we go into non. Whoa. But nobody may want to anymore. Okay. Okay. So moving on to new business. Okay. State budget and the possible impact. Paul and Scott.
Sorry about the feedback, but let me just ask Scott to start out with the revenue side, and let me see if I can get to it. Let me just by basic information, I think most of you know that the legislature is going through a set of budget reductions. The governor proposed a budget with reductions. It went to the House. The House voted on a budget just last week that in effect will have an impact on the local school districts, cities and towns. And that budget is now with the Senate. And the Senate will have, my guess is, up to a month or so to add its information and its priorities to the budget. And then when the Senate finishes at the end of this month, I believe, it'll go to, I think what's called, the legislator back here knows better than I, a committee of conference where the Senate representatives and the House representatives get together and they iron out what the differences are in that budget. And hopefully they agree to a budget that is then presented to the governor, who will sign the budget anytime, hopefully before the 30th of June. Now, this is a moving target for school districts, and unfortunately, school district budgets, if you're an SB2 town, as Guilford is, you've already had an approval on your budget. So any action the legislature takes and the final bill that the governor signs that will have an impact on the Guilford School District budget. And we're in a position really to offer some reductions to the budget based on what we expect will be reductions at the state level in terms of its support of the school district. So what we're presenting is, and boy, this is not for action this evening, this is simply informational. We're presenting our best guess of what the revenues will look like coming from the state and what it could mean in terms of budget reductions. Scott, could you just review that first slide with revenues, please?
Don't go near the speaker.
Currently under the, Paul has here the state portion of teacher retirement. Right now, and I'll just use round figures, right now the school district and the state contributes about 13% of a teacher salary to New Hampshire retirement. Under the current formula, the state contributes 35% towards that 13%. So basically, 4.88% of the contribution is by the state. The House bill, as it's proposed now, is saying that the state will no longer contribute, or 0% of that 13% will be provided by the state. So what that means is that there was a line item in our budget that had the district's contribution towards the New Hampshire teachers' retirement system. We did not anticipate having to pick up that 4.88%, so we have to find someplace in the budget, if it passes that there's no more contribution by the state, an additional $387,000. What that really means is the bottom line of our budget doesn't change. The voters voted in, and they said, this is the operating budget for the school district as proposed by the budget committee. So what we have to look at and say, okay, at the end of the year, we know it's now going to cost us, if this goes through, $387,000 more. So what Paul will be proposing in a few minutes, or reviewing with the school board, is what areas of the budget can we transfer funds, do a budget transfer, to offset that shortfall, or that additional cost that we had not anticipated during the budgetary process. Some other areas, there is, and this is complicated, so I'll try to keep it simple, but we send our students to the Area Vocational Center, Hewitt, over in Laconia. There's a cost for operating the Hewitt Center. The state then gives reimbursement to the Hewitt Center to offset that cost. Whatever balance is available, whatever is expenditures that have not been covered, the budget less the state's proportion is what has to be divided up amongst the school districts that send their kids to the Hewitt Center. We're looking at a shortfall of about 43% of what we put in the budget. So there's additional cost that we have to look at and pick up that also, and Paul will go through that. It's about the $248,000 less the $105,000 that we put in the budget. So basically, if you take the $248 of what it's now going to cost us, less the $105,000 that we thought it was going to cost us, we've got to find additional $240,000. And the last piece is what we're identifying here now is we put $3.05 per gallon for heating oil in the budget. If we go out to bid right now, and this is usually the time we do, we're looking at about a $37,000 shortage in what we had put in the budget. One of the things, as we talked about, is we have a cooperative arrangement. The school district puts together the bid proposal. We go out to bid with a number of towns and school districts in the Lakes region. We go out to bid with about 700,000 gallons worth of fuel. So that bid proposal has been put together. We have it on hold right now because of the rise in the heating oil costs. But we're looking at it. If we went out right now, it's going to be about a $37,000 shortfall. So the total shortfall that we're looking at is about $567,000 that we have to find in other areas of the budget to offset these costs that we did not anticipate or could not anticipate when we were presenting our budget to the budget committee, and then eventually was supported by the voters.
Thank you, Scott. And we felt that in this economic climate, it would be foolish of us to recommend to the board to go back to a special district meeting for a supplemental appropriation. It's just simply the cards aren't there, and that's what we feel is accurate. The next several slides are areas of potential reduction to get to that shortfall of $567,000. We're proposing the reduction of these following areas. Teacher attrition, that simply refers to retirees leaving and hiring lower on the scale. The problem with that and the impact it'll have on Guilford is we're losing teachers in key positions that are referred to as areas of critical shortage. Every year the state puts up a list of areas of critical shortage. We have them here, 2 math positions and a science position. Those are tough areas to recruit for. Those are tough areas to hire. And what we're saying is we're going to look at people who have much less experience. It limits our pool of applicants and our ability to select, but we feel that that's an area that we're slated for cuts. Superintendent attrition, that's the difference between the incoming superintendent's salary package and benefits and what was budgeted. So that has no impact on the on students or anything of that nature. Maintenance projects at $55,000. We feel we have no other choice but to put off the asbestos abatement, the recarpeting, some repairs to toilet areas, and a new basketball winch at the middle school. Those accounted for about $55,000. We're going to have to do that sometime in the future. Contracted services, special education, include primarily, there's a program called Orton Gillingham. We have a contracted service teacher coming in who is helping our students and helping teachers teach a particular method for learning disabled youngsters. We're going to cut back on that, along with speech and language services to students. In effect, we're cutting back on services to students. Now, you may have the question, board, that, well, isn't that mandated by law? Yes, it is mandated by law, and parents may choose to challenge those reductions of services. They may do that through our special education process, through the Department of Education, through a due process hearing. That could always occur. Statewide professional development, that amount, your long-range strategic plan is up for renewal. We need some money in the budget to help us facilitate that process and to develop a new long-range strategic plan, and that money is being taken out of the budget if these reductions continue, if you approve these reductions. And again, I'm not asking for approval this evening. These are just areas that we're flagging. Historically, for as long as I've been here and before that, we've had work done during the summer called summer curriculum days, about 50 to 60 days per summer per school, and that's where most of our curriculum is written and revised, and activities are planned in that area as well. Teachers, after a day of teaching, just don't have the wherewithal and the time to do this extensive process, and a lot of this is during the summer months. We're suggesting that that be reduced. Same with instructional materials. Federal funds offset staffing. As you know, we've had budgeted money for positions that were normally supported by federal money. So if the federal monies don't come through, we still provide service to the kids. This is specifically in the areas of Title I and those kinds of areas. The difficulty now is hearing from the federal government, they may not have a budget passed as well, which means if we reduce this amount of district money and the federal money doesn't come through, we have no programs in the area of Title I services for kids, and that's in the area where the kids are most needy, reading, kids at the remedial level of reading and mathematics. And we also have some technical equipment, specifically rewiring, that we would have to put off to another year. Support staff salaries, as you well know, we had 2% budgeted in there, and we decided that the most logical thing was to reduce that to 0 increases, only because if you look at the categories below, we're talking about reductions of staff positions, or at least portions of staff positions. And we didn't think it would be a proper thing to award one group of people salary increases, while on the other hand, we were reducing positions for others. Administrative reorganization, that's something that we can take up in non-public session under small c. That is, if discussed in public, could impact the reputation of an individual. I'll have a proposal for the board in non-public session that could save the district some additional money. Administrative staffing and technology, we're proposing a reduction of services in that area, specifically at the high school level. And a high school science teacher, we're reducing by about 20%. What will that mean? That will probably mean more kids going into fewer classes, which will have an impact on class sizes. But at this point, we really have no other ways of finding these funds to meet that $567,000 shortfall. Reductions in clerical staff, counseling, paraprofessionals, and custodial staff all add up to about $577,000 of reductions. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that we have to do something. My belief is, and you read the papers just like I do, there will be an impact on local school district budgets based on the state budget. The governor said it, the legislator, the House has passed a budget that will have an impact, and we expect the Senate to follow suit, because the Senate President said just the other day that they are closely aligned with the House. There are some things they have to work out. So we do expect a rather significant shortfall of funds, Could be 550, could be 500,000, could be 450, it could be the full five. I think we're looking at this as a worst-case scenario. But we won't know until the governor signs the budget in June. And so these are some areas that we have flagged for possible reductions. And I'll be happy to take questions. Paul?
Do you have hard copies of this?
I do have hard copies of that, and we will give them to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason I ask is, looking at it, I'd like to take an opportunity to chew on it, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And see, because there are some areas that you guys have flagged that would create some concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, but.
And Paul, the reason why I put this up here is I knew we were going to have a lot of people, and I just threw it on a PowerPoint, but we will have hard copies. And if, Kurt, if I may, we may need to come back to the board at a special meeting to further discuss this. So we may not have the luxury of time for our main meeting, but we may need to call a meeting in between now and May, and to discuss this and further. I think the more time we have, the better handle we'll have on where the Senate's going with the budget. And we really won't know when the Committee of Conference meets and they agree to a budget. Derek?
Well, how does this work with the logistics of signing contracts for next year?
That's a great question. We will have to notify staff members whose positions are tentative, but may be cut. We have to notify them before April 15th. That doesn't mean their positions will be cut. It means we have to protect the district because we cannot legally overspend the bottom line of the budget. And so, Derek, to get to your question, we cannot offer contracts until we have a state budget intact. I think what it's fair to say is we can offer contracts to the vast majority of teachers. There are areas that we're flagging that we would have to notify teachers accordingly. I don't believe at this point in time that I need to pink slip first-year Guilford teachers, second-year Guilford teachers, third-year Guilford teachers. But I just need to watch this process as it transpires. And again, I want to propose some ideas I have, actually the leadership team has, in terms of some administrative reorganization, which will save additional monies. Other questions? Okay, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. We read it in the newspaper. We know it's coming. We are confident that the state budget will impact Guilford and the other school districts. Thank you for your attention. I already went through this. Next steps, wait and see for the Senate's budget, wait and see the Committee of Conference, wait and see if the governor signs in June, and we're not asking for any action by the board at this time.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any other questions for Paul? Okay, well, Paul, I guess you're on the agenda again to discuss the 5-year staffing and projection with principals.
If you take a look at the next piece of information, it was something that you had requested some time ago, I think a good 6 weeks ago. And all it is taking the New Hampshire School Board's study on enrollment and watching and just projecting that enrollment out over a period of 5 years. And let me get a handle on this. You will see on the first sheet,
Ours are both sides of the page.
it is. It's
So we're
both
talking
sides.
elementary or middle first?
Let me get to it. The first one is GMS. It's on your left-hand column. It has grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. It shows the enrollment, and the enrollment at the middle school is easier to predict because it's simply advanced 4th grade into 5th grade, 5th grade into 6th grade, and so on and so forth. It gives us an idea of how many students we have for the subsequent years. It's not entirely accurate. I would not draw any conclusions on this because, as you know, we had about 10 second grade or 11 second grade move-ins over the summer, which threw that whole process out. How many do we have? 13. That hurt. I guess the bottom line is this, if you don't mind me going right to the bottom line. In 11-12, we're going to 17 sections. In 12-13,
we could be reduced to 16 sections, 13 to 14, 16 to 17 sections, 14 to 15, 16 sections, and 2015 to 16, 15 to 16 sessions. Now, you know, every year those numbers will change, but it gives you some idea of a progression that enrollment is slowly tapering off, more slowly than it did before, if these are accurate. If you look at the GES one, which to me is a more difficult one to predict because of your kindergarten enrollment, although I think Jack has a very good handle on it. If you look at 2011-12, you're going to 20 sections, you're staying at 20 sections. But 12 to 13, you go down to 19 sections. And how we determine that is based on the school board policy on ratios. And we're assuming that the ratios will be the same for the subsequent 5-year period. Take a look at 13-14, you're going down another section, total elementary school to 18. You're remaining flat at 18 in 2014-15, and then you're going up a little bit, 15 in 2015-16. Once again, if I can generalize based on this data, your enrollment is decreasing ever so slightly, maybe a few bumps up, but again, I caution you, we have to look at this on a year-by-year basis. And in fact, what we may do is we may ask the folks at Gilmanton and Guilford to renew its cohort survival enrollment projection study, because we're working out of 07 data. And the economy has really altered things, has changed things. And with information from Gilmanton and from Guilford, we can better predict where that enrollment is going for the future. So I just provide that information as just informational. I would not be in a position to make any hard and fast decisions based on that. But it gives you an idea of slow decreasing enrollment.
Questions? Okay. Then the last item of new business is the field hockey gift proposal. Scott, if you want to discuss that, please.
Yeah, and I passed this out before the meeting started, and this was actually just brought in by the Friends of Football, Friends of Guilford Field Hockey today. What you have in front of you is it's a very brief cover letter, and then behind it is a proposal that they sought from Dunlap Landscape. So basically what they're looking at is this, as you're aware, there's been challenges over the last several years of trying to have an acceptable surface on the field hockey field. Now, one of the major problems we have there is that field hockey field sits on top of our district well. So we're very limited on what we can, and that is the challenge, because we can't re-kill, because you can't put it down. So what he's looking at is deep bearing, overseed, and continuously keep cutting, so what you're doing in a sense is killing the weeds before they grow higher than the good grass. But I mean, quite frankly, it's a challenge. I mean, unless you can feed it, weed kill it, and water it, you're not going to establish a good grass. So this is the best attempt.
Also, if they maintain it, they won't have the dandelions growing and blowing and pollinating all over the goods fields, right?
Right.
So if they keep it short, I agree, it's probably a good strategy.
Did you sign up for the dandelion?
Scott, is this is not anything that has to go before the Conservation Committee, is it?
No, it's not. So we will bring it before DES, because we've got to make sure that whatever's put down falls under the guidelines. Because there's a protected radius from our well, and they're very specific in what you can and cannot put down. And so there's two things. I mean, one is Guilford Wells putting their license on the line, so they make sure that they'll oversee it for us. And we all know that we've got one water source in the school, we can't compromise it. So that's why that qualifier was put in there. So really, what they just want to say is, we got a concept, we'd like to move forward, we can't move forward until we know you're going to accept our gift, and then we'll start doing the fundraising work at the same time.
So you need action.
We do.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Based on the limited information.
I'll make
So,
a
so
motion
this, okay.
that we accept the gift from the Friends of Guilford Field Hockey.
Well, I guess I think the action is to approve them to move ahead.
Accept the gift and move ahead of,
Hmm?
accept the proposal from the Friends of Guilford Field Hockey.
Okay.
And allow them to move forward in cooperation with Dunlap Landscape and the school district.
Okay. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Uh,
I'll just make one comment. I'm somewhat involved in the Friends of Guilford Field Hockey.
You gonna recuse yourself?
I'm not going to recuse myself because it's not a financial gain to me.
Right.
It's probably more dandelion picking gain to me.
You used to like to pick the dandelions?
So, just so that the board is aware that I am involved. And the driving force behind this is Lisa Buckley is the driving force behind improving the fields for the kids so that everybody's aware of that.
I would request that, I know Joe mentioned this, that last year in track, it must have been knee-deep sometime, I don't know what it was, but it was really high, and it wasn't mowed that much, that we mowed during track season.
Well, we're talking about the infield of the track.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Even
And I
during track
believe that
season.
part of the plan is to actually mow it more often.
Right.
So that it
Great.
gets the weeds before, so the grass can grow through the weeds.
Great.
And you know, one of the challenges we have
To
is,
hope.
and we go, and trust me, we go through this with the soccer fields as well, is we err on the side of having it higher, because when you cut it down low, you gotta water it.
And then
And
it'll
the
burn.
problem is, it just burns off, and we've had a season where we kept it below, so it's a balance between the two. So, we're putting together a plan in cooperation, well, they're putting in a plan in cooperation to try to get that. I mean, I guess the toughest thing is you just don't have water, and you can't fertilize it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So that completes our public agenda.
So I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small c.
Second.